I'm Robert O'Hara, and I live in New York City. I live and work in New York City and around the country. I'm a playwright and a director. The piece is called Barbecue, and it is essentially a barbecue in which an intervention happens. But it is an intervention done by 4 people who actually should be in rehab themselves, trying to intervene on a sibling who they consider more outrageous than they are. So it is a outlandish comedy and satire on the idea of seeking help for your addictions. Just the fact that there's an international digital festival is like, what the hell is that? I liked the idea of people reading the play and then people from other countries writing something in response to the play. I think that was sort of exciting. And also the exchange of their work and certain people being asked to write in response here to their plays. So I think the universality of it all drew me to it. And also because this play is particularly about a family and about the struggles inside a family. I thought that would be fun for them to see a different version of the American family. Usually, in order to get your work seen by someone outside of your room that you've written it had to be published. These are plays that are not necessarily, certainly mine hasn't even been done. So it certainly hasn't been published. So the change is that it's immediate, that you can actually read works of art in their infancy. I've always been a writer. I've always written skits for my cousins to do in the backyard of my grandmother's house. I was writing skits at school. My grandmother had 12 kids, so I had a lot of uncles and cousins and aunts and just a huge extended family, and so there was a lot of activity happening. But I went to directing school, and at the end of my 3 years, my thesis was a play that I wrote called Insurrection Holding History, and it was important for me to be presented professionally as both a writer and director, because I didn't feel like as a young director that I would actually be able to make a living. And certainly not as simply a writer either. So I wanted to give myself 2 chances to be noticed by people. And so that thesis play was eventually done off Broadway, and that was my first play. If I was not a director, if I simply wanted to direct my work, that would be different. But because I am a trained director, I think of it as a writer, I think of it as a challenge to the director when I write plays. So, sometimes I'll be directing something I've written, I go, who wrote this? Or how am I supposed to do this? I have no idea. But that's what's fun about it, And so handing it over to someone else, I think is quite wonderful. But sometimes I want to sort of investigate the play as a writer and director, as a full artist that I am. And so therefore I'll develop the play in workshop form and I'll direct it, or I'll direct an initial production somewhere and then I'll hand it off to other people. I usually don't start writing unless I have, 80 or so ideas in my head and they're bumping up against each other and sort of commingling together. And then what happens is I'll get an idea that will link itself to another idea that's already there, and they will start to link themselves, and then I'll start to sort of writing. But they come from all walks of life. It can come from an experience I've had with a friend. It can come from a television show. It can come from walking down the street. It can come from a dream. There's no one place that I think creativity comes from. For young playwrights, I would say that you should write from yourself and not from someone else, and that you shouldn't try and write like someone else. You should be wholly and completely yourself. So even if you are not being produced, you want to have an identity. And I think that a lot of playwrights are trying to write, or they are encouraged to write like other people, mainly dead people. And I think that you should write your life and write in the moment now, which I think is so very important, that you actually have an artistic voice that is all your own. You know, my plays, when you read my plays, I tend to believe that you would go, well, no one else could have written this but Robert O'Hara, that it is a Robert O'Hara piece. And that is a new play by Robert O'Hara as opposed to just another Robert O'Hara play, you know. So there's a new idea that I'm dealing with whenever I write a play, or new questions that I'm asking. If you have a singular voice, then your voice can't be duplicated so easily. And it can be identified as different, and you can actually get more attention by being individual. You can be iconic or you can just be anybody, and I choose to be iconic.